Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, I am not in my regular location, and that's something I had told you guys that I will be traveling over the weekend and for the next couple of days. What I wanted to talk about today is, are we selling ourselves too short? Do we really believe ourselves when we look at what is happening in India? Do we really understand that there is a capacity for India to actually become what we dream of in terms of India going forward, the future of India? In the past couple of days, I've done a couple of talks with some people where a lot of uh, gaps in terms of India has come out. Last night's chat with General Narayanan was an eye opener in terms of how our civil services are set up. And of course, all these things do affect the national security of the country. There is no question. My point is that in spite of all these things which are happening, are we selling ourselves short and not realizing our own potential? Do we really believe ourselves? Do we really understand where we are, who we are, why we are, and where do we need to go? As Indians, is that is the most important thing for our national security, for our defense, and for our future. There are certain things that have come out in the past couple of days which need to be discussed, right? But before I get into that, this is not going to be a very long chat. It's just something that I thought of in the over my travel today. I wanted to talk to you about it. Before I begin and get into that particular talk, I wanted all of us to please like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notifications. DevTalks is doing a video a day now, and all thanks to you and all of your support. This is a single person who's doing this, and I'm able to get the energy because of all your responses and all your support coming towards Dev Talks. Of course, yes, if you can contribute towards the Dev Talks efforts, it'll help me go farther away in terms of doing the analysis that I've been doing till now. Getting into the subject now, the question that I want to ask is, do we really believe in ourselves? I want to take us back to the days of COVID when the first lockdown was announced. Where were we at that time? There were articles being written in the New York Times and the Washington Post that India, billions of people will die. There will be anarchy on the streets. We will not be able to actually control the pandemic. It is very interesting to see where we are today. I traveled by air today, and I find myself in an aircraft with nobody wearing a mask, everybody vaccinated, people roaming around as if there was no pandemic. Look at what's happening in our neighborhood country today, right? There is hidden reports which are coming out today which talk about Chinese deaths, which talk about Chinese cremations that have taken place over the past 2 to 3 years. And those figures are staggering, right? I will share them with you in another talk. It's about 4 million people. I'll share the entire data with you. That's what people are talking about. Look at what's happening in the States today with their vaccines and in their whole control of the pandemic. There are concerns, doubts, and a whole lot of conspiracies which are coming out about the vaccines that were touted to be the best in the world. We were in India pushed, and there was a whole narrative that was created that India is not wanting to accept Western vaccines which are better than Indian vaccines. Let's look back and realize what really worked. Was it the Indian vaccine, or was it what the West was taking? I'd request all of you to go back and check the COVID cases today of the Western world that had taken a certain particular vaccine that was lobbying in India to be accepted. I want us to also find out with regards to the recovery rate of the people that have actually gone into the hospitals. Compare that with the populations. Please don't go by the holistic numbers. Compare that with the populations of each country and how they've performed. We in India did not have a medical setup, but we did whatever we needed to do. There were issues, there is no question about it. There was a lot of foreign interference as well. But we stood by our ground and we looked at the long term. Let's go back to the time when we were starting our vaccination. What was the talk? India is exporting vaccinations when it doesn't have enough for itself. Don't we remember those articles and those news time debates coming out every evening at 9 o'clock? We do. But what really happened? We came out and we told the world, in spite of the factor that we need it for our own selves, we are ready and willing to share it with you. There was never a shortage of vaccines in India. Of course, a lot of news for the fact that had come out, and a lot of arguments could be made. There were distribution issues, there were production issues, there were a whole lot of things. I mean, it's a process, it will happen. But at the end of it, what was the result? A huge number of people are today fully vaccinated with booster doses. Did we think that was possible? I don't think so. A lot of us, including myself, was not very optimistic about the way things were going across. Look at ourselves in terms of our internal security, right? We've been having terrorist attacks in the past. About, if you look at 20 years, we've had massive terrorist attacks within the country. Look at what's happening today. There was a question that came up yesterday with regards to intelligence. And General Narayan actually said a very interesting thing. Intelligence is something which is helping us not experience something that we don't want to. And that's something we need to understand. There is a lot of clandestine activity which is happening behind the closed doors, with men wearing probably black clothes. We don't know about it, and we don't need to know about it. Today, what has happened is that in India, there has been a certain amount of realization. We are wanting certain things for our country. We are wanting to be number one. We are wanting to be ahead. And that want is making us demand more. Sometimes those demands are realistic. I don't deny that. Sometimes those demands are a little far-fetched. Let's look at national security for that matter. When something happens, what do we want? We want an immediate response to be given. Why? Because it satisfies us. I'm sure all of us will agree to that. And even I want it. I want an aggressive response to be given so that it satisfies a certain sense that, if you kind of, for the lack of a better word, if you take pangas with me, there's going to be a cost to you. Right? Whenever Pakistan does something, we want to take a very aggressive stand with regards to Pakistan. Of course, at that time, it will help. Of course, at that time, a retribution is required, a response is required. But what is the long-term game that we need to play? That is what is called as strategic decisions, strategic discussions, and strategic actions. Do we really believe that India needs to be more tactical in nature by responding to these immediate things all over the place, or happening all over the world? Or do we actually look at a strategic game and play the long-term game for us to actually benefit? And I'm going to correlate this with what I said about COVID. A lot of us are very upset about what's happening with regards to Punjab, right? Even I am. I have roots there. Now, we realize there is a certain amount of conspiracy which is taking place. And those of you who are on the WhatsApp group know that I'm actually doing some research. I've actually started the research from the Sikh-Anglo Wars of 1849 till date, as a matter of fact, the entire game and how this entire thing was created. We get angry at today's tactical natures, but have we really bothered to find out what are the roots of these problems? The roots of these problems were not set by us, not set by either one of the parties. It was set by a third party who did not want us to actually coalesce and grow. The seeds that were planted then are bearing fruit today. It bore fruit, especially in Punjab in the 1980s, in the 1990s. It calmed down and we see a resurgence again today. But till the time we don't understand the root cause of that problem, how are we going to resolve it? You can keep taking out a particular element who comes and says this and that and maros a nara or stands with a flag and this and that. Fair enough. It will give us good amount of satisfaction. What is the root of the problem? The root of the problem does not sit here. The root of the problem sits in Pakistan. I want to come up with a certain amount of a theory where we are going to talk about addressing the disease rather than the symptom. When we talk about responding to certain events, certain actions, certain people, it is about addressing the symptom. Oh, मेरे को सिर में दर्द हो रहा है तो मैं एक दवाई खा लेता हूँ. ठीक है, शायद वो ठीक हो जाएगा, शायद नहीं होगा. अगर नहीं होगा, there has to be something behind. Are you tired? Have you read too much? Have you been watching too much TV or too many YouTube videos or whatever it is? That's the root cause. Till the time we do not address these root cause, it will not help us. So I want us, whoever's watching this video today and whoever's going to watch this video in the future, I want us to kind of change our mindsets to realize that immediate actions that may give us some pleasure of satisfaction of a response may not help us in the long term, may not be giving us the results that we actually desire. I don't know how many of you will agree with me, and if you do, please do comment. Please do put it in the chat section with regards to what your thoughts are about what I'm saying. General Shankar actually said something last week when we were talking about this thing that India sells itself short. Why don't we believe ourselves? There are 100 wrongs in this country. There is no question. The bureaucracy, there is a big problem. The judiciary, there is a big problem. Law and order, there are issues. Which country does not? Which country is perfect? An authoritarian regime sitting right next to us in China is breaking out into protest, and I don't think the leader knows what needs to be done. Let's look at it. Look at what's happening in Europe, where the people are going to go cold this winter because of their leaders' arrogance, and they're sticking to what it is. It is the lack of knowledge and forethought which has brought Europe to the position today. It is a lack of knowledge of history, it is a lack of knowledge of facts and an understanding of the long term, which has brought America and the West to the point where we find us making jokes about them. It's interesting to see this because at the end of it, one must remember there's a reason why I keep talking about the Ukraine war, because it tells you who sells perfection to us from the West isn't perfect either. It is an important thing for us to understand because this is something that will help us to see ourselves in a better light. How many times do we actually say, wow, India did this? We're the only country in the world with the cheapest space program and one of the most efficient ones. We're the only country in the world that is making the roads fastest in the world today. We're the only country in the world that is showing a positive growth without having a ton of natural resources to be sold. Who else is showing the growth? Saudi Arabia? They're floating on oil. We don't have the kind of natural resources. We are growing today because of our industry, because of our service, because of the Indian setup. Don't we need to be proud of that? Look at the inflation numbers today, which are in double digits in Europe and America, so-called developed economies. Let's talk about those developed economies during COVID. What did they do? Print money and give it to people. What happened with that? Inflation. Do we see that in India today? But when our government announced a lot of packages and this and that, I'm sure that there could be criticism made on the way or on the type or on this and that and the other. I'll tell you a certain industry which was ignored, which is hotels and hospitality. But overall, the country grew and it developed. And it's stabilized and it is at a place today which is being called as the shining star in terms of the economy in the world. We have irritants. Which other country has two nuclear enemies on its border, on each side of its border? And not just two nuclear enemies. You've got two nuclear colluding enemies on each side of its border who prefer non-state actors, as they say it. I would call them terrorists. What is China doing in the northeast? What has Pakistan been doing in Jammu and Kashmir? And let me tell you this, a lot of people may not understand. Pakistani actions in Punjab are again targeted at J&K. Why? Because they feel if they are able to destabilize Punjab, they would have more control over the north. Look at the singular focus in terms of their focus towards Jammu and Kashmir. They've ruined their country, but they're stuck on their goal. That's something you must commend about Pakistan. Look at what the Chinese were able to do. They were able to actually develop themselves. A lot of people say authoritarian state and this and that. Fair enough. There has to be a way where democracy can grow in the same way. Why doesn't India find a way? India has found a way. It's just that it is not being recognized by us. And that's a big gap, I must say, with the current establishment. What is the biggest gap? Communication. Look at what happened with the farm laws. If they were communicated well, of course, the protests were, you know, organized and done and this and that and the other. Fair enough. And we'll talk about that when we talk about Punjab. But there was a gap. And that gap was exploited, which brings me to my next point. We need to look at what are the fault lines that could come up. Guys, we're getting into a very dangerous time in the world. Remember one thing, when you're going to be growing, everybody else is going to be sinking. What's going to be happening? Going to be saying, how do we bring that guy down? You're defying the entire West today. What are you trying to do? You're telling them, listen, we are who we are. We are going to do whatever we want to, and you need to live with it. Yes, no. The world said, oh, please don't buy Russian oil and this and that. What did we do? We just didn't buy Russian oil. We made Russia one of the highest suppliers of oil. People think, oh, it's just oil. No, let me tell you this. Today, if we are sitting comfortably in our houses with lower percentages of inflation, of course, things are expensive still, but comparatively lower than the rest of the world, it is because of the decisions that we took looking at the future. And that is something I want us to talk about, which is the most critical thing. I think, Mandar, I'm going to take this comment from you. I really appreciate what you said. A nation needs to learn how to love itself. Do we really love India? We love our army. There's no question about it. We are ready to listen to the failures of our army in certain times. 1962, and we all feel it. Remember the episode with Colonel Ajay Raina, where we discussed 1962, and I'm working on something else with him with regards to JNK and the history of that place. But one must understand, even when we listen to those defeat and the worst of the stories, we still feel proud of our people. Why? Because they fought, and they fought with no regard for their own safety. That is what India is. I also want to say that when did we start changing? Let's really understand. And I'm not going to say since the time Modi Saab came in and then we started changing. I kind of, yeah, okay, fine. A lot of the graph started going up. There's no question. But how did he, if you really believe that Modi was the catalyst of the change, did Modi just sit on the throne or sit on the prime minister's chair or himself? Don't you guys remember the time of 2012 onwards when India started questioning things? India decided that enough is enough. We're not going to take nonsense anymore. And that is how the change started. It is not about the factor that, oh, he came and he has a magic wand. And no, it was him and the rest of the country who responded to him. Whatever works, it doesn't matter. It's working today. Of course, there are a lot of gaps. As I said, the bureaucracy, big problem. The judiciary, a huge problem. And I don't want to get into the specifics of this case and that case and this, because I want to have an overall kind of a discussion with you guys. Why are we so this thing about the fact that we cannot have a certain amount of patience to say, hang on, let's fix ourselves economically so that we are strong enough to have solid reforms? Doesn't that make sense? It's a long-term thought. Today, if you're going to get into reforms of your basic structure, what is going to happen? It's going to cost money. And if you're going down the tube in terms of inflation and this and that, you think, is it possible to do reforms? You think today the European Union could reform itself? If you ask me, I don't think there's going to be a European Union left. Forget reforming themselves. Because they had a tactical viewpoint. They got stuck and hitched behind someone who cared about themselves rather than the greater good. We have, I mean, let me say this. Minister Jaishankar last week, I think last week he was in a show. I forget when, but he said something very very consequential, and which is what I want to talk about. He said, if I would have listened to the states about what they were telling me at the beginning of the Russia Ukraine war, I would have been sunk. Of course, articles have been written, op-eds have been written that, oh, we are missing out the opportunity. When what will happen if China attacks us? Will Russia come and help us and all that? Let me ask this very question. I'm not a military person, and I've said this, and there's this gentleman on the channel, and I must appreciate the comment that he said. It touched my heart. When I actually say that I'm not going to discuss specific military rather than an operational perspective, and he appreciated that. So thank you so much, Mr. John Doe. I've never been able to actually connect with you personally, but thank you so much. Uh, Look at it from a perspective of what we are today. Where have we reached? Right? If we wouldn't have been independent in our thought, in our actions, we would have been in the same soup as the rest of the world. Yeah, we would have been all standing together. But instead of me switching on 10 lights in this room, I would have been sitting with probably a candle and not even having this conversation because internet would have been so goddamn expensive. I didn't have a subject as per se because today's been rather calm day in terms of the news, but this is something that has been boggling me. We all fall for a certain narrative, and I've done this program about narratives as well with Janan Shankar. We fall for a certain narrative. We fall for a certain narrative in a way that we say, oh God, we can never improve. If this is happening in our country, we can never improve. Tell me which country is perfect where this is not happening there. People from India run to Canada and stuff like that. Look what's happening in Canada today. People go to Europe. Look what's happening in Europe. No country is perfect. Russia is no. Look at their history. It's terrible. No country is perfect. We need to see how close to perfect we are. We'll never get to perfection, but how close we can get. Another factor about national security. When China does something, oh, we should. Is that really the solution? Military action is the last answer. It's the bottom end of your response. Have you closed all the aspects? Look at where India-China relations are today. You can say, oh, they're still sitting in our this and that. They're sitting on our border. Some people say we've lost 1,000 square kilometers. Some people say 5,000 square. Are theek hai yaar. I mean, people will keep having this argument. I want to ask all these people who have an argument about, oh, this is LAC, this, that. How many of you have actually been there and seen the damn LAC on the ground? I haven't. But we will take out satellite maps and we will do this and that and the other without understanding what it is. Do we know when we are taking satellite maps, one of the biggest things that any army does is deception operations? You know what are deception? Inflatable tanks. Please read. They've been doing that since the Second World War. How many of those setups are actually real? Who can guarantee that? With the satellite map? Yeah, sure. Then if we could do all that stuff, why do you need 4-star generals sitting in the Ministry of Defense or wherever they do sit in and making battle plans and doing analysis? And why do we need a RAW if 5 people can sit together in a room, get some satellite images and say, oh, this is where the Chinese are sitting? Of course, yes, that is a part of an analysis and is appreciable. Everybody's wanting to do it, but let's not get dragged into a certain narrative. Look at where India-China relations are. Who's the only country in the world who's been successfully been able to ban them in terms of their apps? Look what happened to their tech industry after that. Yeah, a lot of it was their own doing, but a lot of it was ours as well. Go back and see after the app bans how much valuation these tech companies actually lost. You may say, oh, there's $100 billion trade deficit between India and China. Well, what is $100 billion? Decent amount of money, yeah, of course. But doesn't India have the capacity to just pay off the $100 billion? We've got close to 600 billion in terms of forex reserves. Our debt to GDP ratio is far better than healthy. What is Chinese debt to GDP ratio? Anybody knows? Please put it in the comment. Let's do a comparative. Let me not say this. Let's please put it in the comment and tell me what is the debt to GDP ratio of the Chinese versus ours? Who's more healthy? Because we don't want to know these things, because we want to fall for a certain one-sided narrative. Thank you, Mr. Naveen, 320%, sir. That's the Chinese debt to GDP ratio. I'm not sure I believe that figure as well, because the Chinese will not, you know what the Chinese are going to do? They're not going to put out the right stuff. They're not going to tell you what is happening. They went across and invested, Belt and Road Initiative, and Chinese think 50 years ahead. Okay, they thought 50 years ahead. Fair enough. Let's look at their own infrastructure inside. There's a train called the high speed railway, Shanghai to Beijing high speed railway. It goes at what, 400-500 kilometers an hour, whatever. You know what's the loss per year that the Chinese incur? $1.2 billion a year. That's just one section. They built it so well that the train needs to be full every time for them to make a profit, because it's just made for passengers. It cannot carry any cargo. You make the money in cargo, by the way. They went and invested into a Sri Lanka in a port which does not get 30 ships in a year. Yeah, you can call it the string of pearls and this and that. Guys, remember one thing: they built an infrastructure, right? Somebody's got to maintain it. Somebody's got to repair it. Somebody's got to paint it. Somebody's got to polish it. Somebody's got to man that damn thing. Who's going to do it? China. Is that a strategic thought, really? There are African countries who are telling the Chinese, bye-bye, buddy, we can't pay you. Go. Angola, for that matter. Yes, they own large amount of ports around the world. Fair enough. How are you going to maintain it when your economy is down in the dump? Strategic thought? Let me just block this one. Give me a second, guys. Sorry. I don't know where this spam comes from, but anyways, it always distracts me. Look at where the Chinese are today. They are really strategic in their thought process. I don't know. You tell me. There was a news some time ago, the Chinese are going to get their aircraft carrier to Djibouti. Fair enough, let them get it. What does that mean? Nothing. Getting their aircraft carrier to Djibouti, it's a ship. You can pull it to Djibouti. What difference does it make? The last time they tried doing that, getting it out, what happened? They had to tow it back because the engines don't work. The problem that I'm trying to come to is that instead of us falling for a certain narrative again and again and again and again, let's as a community, and I'll call it the Dev Talks community. I'm a little proud of this particular community. Let's as a community start analyzing stuff. Let's look at it, break down. What is the current? What is the potential outcomes? And what is in the future? Very critical for us to look at. We want instant gratification in India today. And that, ladies and gentlemen, could be very dangerous for us. Right? We talk about, I'll come back to the Khalistan point. We talk about, the Khalistanis are doing this, that, the other. How many of us know that there's 7 big names that have been removed off the circulation in the past couple of days, past 2 weeks? Something is happening. I don't know what it is. I don't know who's doing it. I don't know where it is happening from, but something is. It's just for us to actually put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 together and to realize, there's something in the play. Analysis, future, breakdown, consequences. Very, very important for us to look at. Yeah, dealing with one guy, again, as I said, who's flying a flag somewhere and this and that, or saying, Pakistan, whatever, and this and that. Yeah, fair enough. You'll get some satisfaction. What is the root? Where is the root? Root is in Pakistan. Yeah, a lot of us would say, I've done shows about taking back POK. I've done solo about it. I've done it with General Ravi Shankar. I've spoken to General Narayanan, and I've spoken to many people about it. I personally, let me say this very, very clearly. I don't believe we should actually go in for that place because there are many reasons. And if you guys want to get into a little depth, watch those shows where I actually explain my point of view and my guests actually explain theirs. That's my belief. Maybe right, maybe wrong, but it's at least something that I'm analyzing. And that's the main thing. We need to think about this, that, and the other and come at a particular end. Why don't we believe ourselves? Why do we need international gratification for some Gora Bhai to come and tell us, oh no, India, you guys are doing a good job? Then only we'll say, ha, yeah, no, no, he said it. IMF is saying we are growing, that's why we are growing. But when our own people tell us, boss, we are growing, we are doing well. No, 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 no. You guys will be lying to us. Isn't that the case all the time? In spite of all the wrongs in this country, guys, we are still where we are. And I can guarantee you this fact. I'm going to be here doing videos about our growth. I can guarantee you we're on the right path. Nobody has a magic wand. If anybody does, please let's elect him. Let's put him up there. Let's remove Modi ji and tell him to go home. Whoever has the magic wand, please come, do it. This man is giving a shot. Let's let him have a shot. I'm sure he's going to make terrible mistakes along the way. That's fine. Who hasn't? Till the time we as a community stop falling for these narratives, resist these narratives, and push them away, not just with us, but our peers, our friends, our families. The only way to do that is to know, is to analyze, is to read. We've started as a country, we started reading today. 10 years back, how many of us would be actually interested in history? One of the most popular things that you would hear when you talk about, oh, history is such a boring subject, because that has been ingratiated into our head. We need to start questioning stuff, but we need to start questioning stuff with the right point of view, not with that article that somebody has written or some guy has spoken with a ulterior motive. Most important, you don't believe me, whatever I'm saying. My point is, let's do our own research. Right? Even if I come and tell you something, you watch my show, go back, read about it. I may be wrong. It's okay. You may be right. Come back, tell me, hey, listen, Aadi, you went wrong in this particular place. I'll be glad to correct myself. But I'll be happy that I forced someone to do some research. Remember one thing, guys, the only reason I put out these presentations with regards to this whole thing is because I want to show you facts. I want to show you data. And I'm not trying to tell you that I'm selling a certain narrative. No. I'm analyzing a certain situation, which is what I'm pushing across. Maybe in a certain particular place, may not be. Like this particular video is about the India narrative. We need to, and the last thing I'm going to say before I get into some questions or some comments that you guys have put in, we need to start believing ourselves. We need to start loving our country. We need to start understanding we can also do it. There's nothing wrong with us. If we find 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 things wrong with us, please look outside. They've got 300,000 wrong with them as well. That's how it is. That's how the world works. Nothing's perfect. So let's first believe in ourselves. Let's figure out what's happening around us. There will be mistakes along the way. There will be costly mistakes along the way. There's no question about it. But we as a country needs to understand, learn from these particular mistakes. I think very interestingly, I think that Colonel Raina had said this, 62 was a very bad thing, but we learned from it. The IPKF from Sri Lanka, and guys, I'm going to do a whole series about IPKF with people who actually fought there. Somebody's given me about 6 books to read, so it's going to be taking me a little while to do that, but I'm really, really enthusiastic. That was an operation where our army, and please correct me if I'm wrong, learned how not to fight in an urban setting, which helped us in the Northeast, which helped us in Kashmir. A lot of wrongs led to analysis, led to thought, led to changes, and led to successes after that. Of course, there will be still incidents. There will be some attack in Kashmir. There will be some issues in the Northeast. There will be some issues in the Red Corps. All that will continue. But overall, we need to know that we are doing what we are doing and we are on the right track. Yes, there will be obstacles. People will try and put a stick through our scope, through our, through the spokes of our wheel. We will fall. It's going to happen. But we need to stand up, dust ourselves off, analyze, move forward. And I say this very, very clearly in a non political sense. Let me put this across very clearly. If someone is trying to do something, let's give him a shot. He probably has a thought and he probably knows more than what we do, especially in terms of national security. There are people sitting there who have a larger, brighter picture rather than what we have. What we see is in the public domain. What we don't see is actually more. Right? That's all I wanted to say. And it's something that I've been feeling for a little bit because, we've done, like today's episode that I did with Miss Smita Mishra was Colonel Purohit. It's a sad, sad story. And I read that book, guys. I didn't want to actually, let me say this very clearly. I didn't want to actually get into the story as per se with her because, she's put in a lot of effort to write the book. I didn't want to kind of rat it out right there. But my point of actually interacting with her is to help her sell more, one, reach more people. I'm sure she has got a great reach herself, but if I can contribute 2 books, fair enough. That's good. But is for us to understand again, the second question that I asked her is about the narrative. Guys, today's world is all about the narrative, and we need to be on the right side of the narrative all the time. We need to build our own narrative. We need to propagate our own narrative. Help their stocks grow. Let's, as a community, create a narrative for India, which is the right narrative and reaching large amount of people so that we can talk about what we talk about on a daily basis at 9:30, 10 every day. The right stuff, the right analysis. Right? So, couple of questions, some comments that you guys have put. I'm just going to go through. Naveen Saab, thank you so much. In the same light, I think Priyam's mission around shedding the colonial subservient mindset is very timely. Absolutely. We've been made to believe that there's something wrong with us. When are we going to shed that? Again, the whole Khalistan issue. I did this interview with Mr. Sanjay Dikshit, and he said something during that interview, and he said, oh, we think that, this thing has been brought and thopoed onto our heads and this and that. Oh, this 80. No, the whole Khalistan issue was started by the British. It was done as a divide and rule policy. I mean, there is the British are saying this, not us. They established certain organizations that actually exist even today, creating the tamasha that they are, for the purpose of controlling this particular community. This was a warrior community. They said, yaar, inko agar control nahi kara, to marenge humko yehi. So they broke it. That's what they did. And we are reaping the foul today. That's what is happening to us. Naveen sir, thank you so much for your contribution. You're also saying we need to rise above our politics and external narratives and keep true to our national interest. Absolutely correct, sir. Our national interest has to be forefront. There is no question about it. We cannot be looking at the factor that यार वो ऐसा वो बुरा मानने दो यार, हमारा इंटरेस्ट है सबसे पहले रहेगा. There is no question about it. उसके आगे कुछ भी नहीं है. I mean, if we need to, and I am an open proponent of the factor that fair enough, buy oil from Russia, buy all of the oil from Russia, but buy from Iran also. It's in our national interest. It's close by. I don't care if Iran benefits or not. It's my national interest. I can get it close by, I buy it. As simple as that. You don't like it, fair enough. We put our case across. This is what it is. Don't like it? Okay, move forward. What will you do? Sanction us? Do it. You think it'll help or stop India if the West sanctions us? They had the opportunity, they couldn't. That tells you something about your own power today. Right? I think we need to have a different stroke for different folks, i.e., more aggressive options with Pakistan and more calibration in responses for China and the West. I agree with you, but I would actually add a little bit of aggression towards China as well. In the sense, not aggression, it's about aggressive stance, because the Chinese kind of appreciate that. Let me tell you one thing. The Chinese, if they appreciate one thing, is patriotism. That is it. If you're willing to stand and die for your country, they respect that. They're going to back off. They don't respect this thing. They won't be willing to do it themselves because of their chocolate soldiers. That's different. But this is what their mentality is. Right? So I absolutely agree with you with regards aggressive options, but aggressive options can be beyond the military or below the military level as well. Aggressive options could be diplomatic, could be economic. Look what you have done to Pakistan today in terms of, and if somebody tries to tell me, oh, we didn't have a hand in it, the world is like that, वो अपनी वो ठीक है यार, fair enough. uh, if you really believe that is true, okay. And if we are doing something like that, it's not going to get printed in the newspaper. Hey, dear Indians, you know what? We did this to Pakistan today. It's not going to happen. Okay, so there is a huge factor of what we have done to Pakistan as well. There's a huge factor with regards to the economic issues in China that we've done. We were the first country in the world today to stand up to China and say, enough, stop. Remember it. Please go back to the time when we banned the apps. We stood up to China militarily. Who was doing that before that? Yeah, US would send a ship through the Taiwan Strait that they keep doing. Who faces the brunt for that? The poor Taiwanese. The US is not there trying to defend their airspace when 300 Chinese jets come in over Taiwan. Think about it. Adi, there is a need to need to do more on getting the right narrative across, both internally and externally. Domestic audience still has many misconceptions on where we are, where we are going. Absolutely agreed with you. A lot of us actually become very, very pessimistic about our things. Oh, we can never do it. यार हमारा तो भट्टा ही बैठा हुआ है. हम कभी नहीं कर सकते. अभी तक नहीं किया तो क्यों कब क्या करेंगे? True, in a lot of senses, yes. Look at the way we drive. I mean, it's ridiculous. But fair enough, I look at it in a very optimistic sense. And if I need to grow my country, I cannot be, oh, we can't do it. If I'm going to keep on saying we can't do it, then we won't do it. We have to say we will do it, then it'll happen. So yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. As far as the international narrative is concerned, sir, there is a need for an outward wing. I don't know how far is happening. I don't know what's happening with that, but there is a certain need for it, and there is no question that needs to be done. Okay, internal conversation, but an interesting one. Manda, for the nation to love itself, it needs to become better or the best in the world in certain things, and the best to sell itself, because the people would naturally want to associate themselves with better things. That's true, sir. But I'm sorry, Amay sir, but that's a little idealistic as well. We can't be the best in everything, or we can't be a best. It's not possible. Till the time you're not the best, you won't appreciate yourself. No, I think we need to appreciate ourselves for what we are. We are one of the oldest civilizations in the world. The only thing we don't believe our own civilization, we're not proud of it because it's not taught to us in the schools. And no Gora has written an essay about it. There are Indians going across and doing research on our own temples. How many of us actually want to watch it? Or our own structures, which are ancient, how many of us actually want to dwell into it and understand what was the technology that was used in those days? They talk about the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Yeah, why is it famous? Because it's leaning. Really? You made a mistake and you're wanting me to go spend money, go there to watch a tower that is going to fall down sometime. Really fantastic. Look at the kind of stuff that we've built in India. We've carved stuff out of mountains. That's our technology. I agree that the long-term actions and plans are correct, but the Indians have a problem of getting too much emotional about incidents and policies. Great people think about constructive changes. Yes, Saab, there is absolutely no question. You are 100% right. It is critical that we understand who we are first, right? And emotional responses will be tactical responses. They will not be strategic responses. They will not be in the long term benefit of our people. It will be, हाँ ठीक है, short term में कुछ कर दिया, हाँ हो गया, खुश हो गए. So absolutely, there is no question. The Mars mission kids in India would want to work for NASA. Today, most of them want to work for ISRO. Yeah, of course. Why? NASA, what will happen? The guy will have a party in a 5-star hotel saying, oh, my son got through NASA. How many parties have you guys attended when somebody's son got through ISRO? That's our mindset. Oh यार वो क्या इसरो वाले कर रहे होंगे. Just some thoughts to think about. We hate ourselves and there is inferiority complex that we are incompetent and the rest of the world is better than us. Is it really, sir? Please tell me, is it? I don't think so. I don't think so. Look at us today. Look at us talking about this. How many bloggers in the West do you find actually reading? How many groups of people would you find them reading into history and doing the stuff that they used to do all that? Today, what are they doing? Wokeism. That's the most popular trend in the West today. What is India doing? Trying to realize itself. That's the difference. But yes, I understand what you're trying to say in terms of the inferiority complex. Why should we have that? We're no lesser than anybody else. There used to be a time, from the industry that I am, when a Gora walked into the place that I work, oh, bada guest aa gaya and all that stuff. Today is not the case. It's That's not the case, right? So things are changing, but I think it's going to take a massive amount of time to kind of set this straight. Who'll be the who'll hold the clown responsible for campaigning for US vaccines? One more stellar chapter in this anti-national agenda at the behest of our enemies. I don't think they're inimical, sir, because let me put it across. It's business. He just wants to sell his freaking vaccines. He knew one thing: if you made your own, he's not going to buy yours. So he said, "Oh no, yours are bad. यार खराब हैं ये तो मेरी खरीदो." Simple as that. Clown, right word. Look at what's happening in terms of the infections. Yeah, and all of you put across 320 and 45, and ours is around 35% in terms of the debt to GDP ratio, and it's going to fall. Wait and watch, sir. CCP is listening in. Yeah, I keep getting these blogs, and I had some very interesting incidents in the past. Sometime I'll write about them, where I found that there is, yeah, something is happening. Anyways, I don't care. To be honest, we give much importance to foreign reports. Latest I saw USA reports that India has more mass shooting than China, Pakistan, Iran. Is USA talking about mass shooting? I don't think I need to explain that. Yeah, of course, it's hypocritical, nothing more. We fall for the wrong narrative just because we don't have our own. Sir, we've got the strongest. The problem is we don't believe it. India, that's a narrative by itself. Look at the world rushing to you today. When the Ukraine war started, people didn't go to USA, people didn't go to China, people didn't go to Russia, people didn't go to UK. They all landed up in India because they knew whichever side India stands on wins. And I'd done a video about this, got the centrality of India. They were back to back people coming into India. Why? Because they love it? Because they want to have butter chicken? No. Because they realize here is a country that has the tipping balance today. We decided to go our own way. A lot of people say, oh, we are acting for Russia and this and that. Fair enough. You want to think that? Okay, fine. I don't. We are looking out for our own interests. If tomorrow Russia takes a certain step that we don't like, we'll be the first ones to back off. Let me say that very clearly. Because it benefits us, we do it. That is it. Let them keep talking about mass shooting and this and that and the other. The problem is that everybody writes a report, right? And we read that report and we start believing it because it's been printed in I don't know, Washington Post or someone like that. Guys, gone are the days. Gone are the days. One can talk about the factor that BBC has a huge reach. Fair enough. But half the world also knows it as the British BS channel. Yes, no. Do you guys agree with me? That's what it is. The over control of a certain narrative leads you to this disaster. I think, yes, we need a certain narrative. There's no question. But I don't think we should do the same thing at what the British do. Look at what this stupid channel in Al Jazeera, right? It keeps printing and printing and printing. Oh, India this, India that, India this, India that. Keep printing. What happens? Nothing. Half the world today knows these guys are biased. There are people today saying, "Oh, Qatar was a mistake." Really, happy realization. You landed up there and realized there are issues. Wow, you did that with the Beijing Olympics, and then you started protesting. And you're doing that with Qatar, and now you're going to protest when it finishes. How strategic of you! So let's not sell ourselves too short. The rest of the world is not rocket scientists. Let me let me say that very clearly. Right? Not a communication gap. Sorry to paraphrase JFK, but we need to ask what we can do for India and not what India. Sab, I'm putting my hands up. I think that is one of the most important things that you've said today. Why? Because at the end of it, we say, oh, this is happening, that is happening. Government should do something. Arey bhai, aapne kya kiya? Washington Post is writing, why isn't the government kicking? Why should the government? Everything that as Indians we dream of, as aggressive Indians that we dream of, we expect the government to start doing. No, they've got their own ways and we've elected them. Let's give them the suggestions, but let's give them the space also to do what they want to. We can't keep, you know, putting stumbling blocks. It's absolutely apt. And I think I missed this during my discussion, but thank you so much for pushing this across. We always expect the government, यार government कुछ करे तो आगे कुछ होगा, नहीं तो कुछ नहीं हो सकता. भाई साहब, government कुछ नहीं कर सकती. We are the government. We need to ask for it. It will happen. If all of us stand together and say this is what we want, politely, respectfully, and without violence, that's what's going to happen. That's what public opinion is all about. Today, when we protest even on online, we talk about certain things. We've seen things changing. We've seen that. We've seen people talking about and taking up certain issues and things happening about it. That's how it is. It will take a little time, but I'm sure it will happen. How incredible our country would be if people would just prioritize national interests on every street. True? No question. Absolutely no question. We can build one documentary channel to build the correct narrative for the masses. You can use my 13-year experience in the film and TV. Mr. Rupesh, thank you so much for the offer. I mean, honestly, I am looking at the idea of Dev Talks is first to actually talk about the right things within ourselves for us to understand. I wanted to bring in military people to discuss military matters because those are the most. I mean, diplomacy is easy. You could understand what is happening around the place. You don't understand is the military. There are people who spent 40 years of their lives, and there are people who will sit outside and say, "Oh no, he's talking wrong." Yeah, there are certain few who will do it for a certain narrative. That's fine. But generally speaking, most of our people are stand-up guys who want the best things to happen for our country. And let me tell you, even if when they criticize what is happening around, they're not criticizing it because a lot of them are criticizing because they want it to change, nothing else. It's interesting. And Rupesh Saab, thank you so much. You've put in a certain thought to me. I'm going to come back to you and get in touch with you if you don't mind. Please read Indian Knowledge System by Professor Mahadevan. I am Bangalore. We all need to know our history correctly and promote it widely. Thank you for the suggestion, sir. Okay, this is a different comment, but I'm going to take it up. It says wrong approach. The trade balance in Chinese favor basically means they charge us annual hafta or more than 100 billion a year. Basically, we are buying peace. I don't buy that. Let me assure you this. If you think that the Chinese, it will not affect the Chinese tomorrow if we don't trade with them, oh no, that's not the case. There is a reason why they're not going military. There is a reason because they're going to lose money. They're not going to lose money from India itself. They're going to lose money from all over the world. You think the world will do business? Look what they did to Russia. Look what they did to Russia. You think these guys are going to tolerate the Chinese doing something like that? And don't sell ourselves short, guys, because you're buying stuff because you need it. It's for your own benefit. Buy it. So what? The day you build up your own capacity, tell them to buzz off. And that's happening. That did not happen with a magic wand. It take time. It'll take time. I mean, we just started doing that some time ago. Look at ourselves. When did we kind of reform? 1991. It's been 30 years. Before that, how many years did it take us to make a damn scooter? 14 years my dad took to get a scooter for himself. 14 years. Yash, excellent question. How do you think, sir, we are going to fix our education system? I don't know, sir. I'm not an education expert, but I think certain steps are being taken. I think the alternative media and the growth of the alternative media, like channels like me and so many bigger, huger channels that and myself who are putting out so much of information, is there for us. How many of us, when we were in school, had this kind of information and access to this kind of information for us to understand what was happening? Most of us started realizing there's something wrong by the time we were already in our 30s. A lot of the kids today, by the time they are getting to 22, 23, they're already realizing it. The next generation will realize it when they were 16. And that's how the society will change. It takes a generation or two for change to happen. It's not possible. So let's kind of keep it together and it'll happen. I'm 100% sure. We need to not sell ourselves short all the time. Mr. Dictator, you say, Adi, I really like the series with different genres. Please make a playlist for each series. Sir, please check out my website, thedeftalks.com. Everything has been put up into the playlist, into verse. I'm yet to do it versus the people, but versus the subjects is already been done. Remember, it's just a single guy who's researching, reading, recording, editing, updating, and writing articles. By the way, this week I couldn't because I was a little busy. And of course, doing some other stuff as well. So it's a little difficult, but I'll figure it out. I'll probably do it within this week and figure it out. Guys, thanks so much. I wanted to actually talk about this. It kind of is very close to my heart because I really feel that we keep on selling ourselves short. There's nothing wrong in criticizing your own country, but there's something wrong when you only do that. When you only can look at the wrongs, then there is something wrong itself. So let's be positive about what we are doing. Let's look at the strengths of our country and build it up. Let's create a community like ours where we talk about the right stuff. Let's spread the word, not just for my benefit. Let's just spread the word so that more people understand strategic talks, strategic nature of things. And people don't fall for a Chinese built an airfield somewhere. Oh, अब तो Chinese attack करता है. ठीक है यार, airfield बना लिया. So what? आपने नहीं बनाया क्या? The problem is our media will not tell us what we are doing. How many times have you heard a media report when India extended its runway in Jorat? You won't hear that. Why? Because nobody's interested in that. What people are interested in, Chinese have extended. The threat is, oh, dekho. It's a clickbait. The problem is that the entire information system about this country has come down to clickbaiting. How many views can you get by pulling people into your show without having any substance? Correct me if I'm wrong. Let's not fall for this clickbait. Oh, Chinese have built up an air. How many of us have actually thought of, okay, Chinese have built up an airfield. Okay, why are they doing it? They didn't have one? I don't know. Were they vulnerable? Was the previous one gone bad? Were they not able to maintain it? There's so many reasons that they could be. Or, yeah, fair enough, they're wanting to be aggressive. Okay. Let's see. Our force is not sleeping. Let's have trust in the whole country itself. We will have problems. We will have issues. We will fall. And we need to still stand up, dust ourselves off, and move forward. You're asking me what is my views on leftists. They're human beings. Let them be. Let them have their opinion. It's a free country. Good enough. It's for us not to believe it. That's my view. Thank you so much, guys. Interesting talking to you from when I've been abroad. Jasmine, thank you so much for your compliment and your comment saying I'm right. Thank you. I don't, it's just something which has been there in my mind. It's been nagging me for a while when I read comments which are coming on the YouTube channel, some of them are really positive, but some of them are really negative. And I really negative, not in a derogatory sense towards me. You can keep writing bad about me. I don't care. But when people misunderstand what communication is being put out, and they go on the same rant that, oh, this is bad, that is bad, India can't make a fighter aircraft. How many countries can, man? How many countries can? Really? Let's look at it. Look at what China is doing today. They've not been able to make an engine, and they are technologically superpower, reverse engineering, and this and that. Bull. That's all I would say. Guys, before I sign off, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Please hit the bell icon so that you get notifications. Tomorrow night, I'll be back with Jen Shankar. Normally, Sundays is Jen Shankar's night, but unfortunately, he's stuck a little bit, so we've not been able to get together. I thought this was a great opportunity for me to actually put in some of my views that I've been thinking out for a bit. Lots more coming up at Dev Talks. There's going to be stuff on Punjab. There's going to be more stuff on China. Tomorrow is going to be, unless and until something else happens, is going to be a security analysis of Pakistan. The new guy is in. He's getting slapped around the place. Let's see what's going to happen to Pakistan in the future. That's the plan. As I said, if you can, please do help out the Dev Talks efforts and contribute towards my efforts in making better and better videos and more sessions for you, for us to get the right narrative in our country and see ourselves grow. Thank you so much for so many of you who are actually saying great session. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, and see you tomorrow.